else, and like, oh, I'm blocking that UDP port in my firewall. And it's like, or, oh, my firewall, it's not keeping that 5060 static. It's actually translating it to 15,400. Why is it doing that? Well, you have a sonic wall. You need to turn on persistent NAT and all this other stuff. And you go through this whole conversation with someone like, oh, we get it. And then, those are the kind of conversations with Asterisk. I mean, Asterisk now is great, but the fact that you could log in and install a tool that's open source to actually debug your problems, and in some cases it actually comes standard with the OS, like TCP dump. You can run that 24/7, record everything that's going across the server, and then look at it the next day. And there's things like now that are out that are on most, like Ubuntu 16.04 and later, and later versions of CentOS. You can install SNGrep. SNGrep lets you look at the call in real time as it's going through with RTP and everything. It tells you where all the problems are. It identifies what the problems are before you even have to figure it out. You just install SNGrep. You do SNGrep-D, your Ethernet, enter, and just sit there and watch the SIP calls go through.
Wow.
And you get to sit there and trace. And if your media is there, you can hit F3, and all of a sudden all your RTP flow shows up. And the best thing about it is if I'm talking to you and you're using SNGrep, I'm using SNGrep on my side, I can say, hey, you know what? Grab that call and send it to me. I can then combine those two calls in SNGrep, and I can see what's happening on your side of the firewall compared to my side of the firewall, and we can identify problems in seconds.
Wow, that's fantastic. And obviously that works with as an addition to Asterisk.
Yeah, Asterisk runs on Linux. So as long as you have access to as long as you can get to a root or an SUDO user on Linux, guess what? You have access to the entire plethora of networking tools that Linux has to offer, which are immense. And the best thing about those tools is that those tools are the tools you wish you had. When I was Cisco certified up until those all expired a long time ago, but I wish I had those tools.
For sure.
If I would have had TCP dump right at the command line on a Cisco box, and I pulled that, oh my gosh, I would have.
Yeah, because you're onto something. Because what that really back in the day, what that translated to was setting up a management port, mirroring that, and then doing packet capture.
Yeah.
And I have to this day, I still have it because because it's the way I was trained 15 years ago. I still do it, but this way. But I've got this little Netgear 4-port hub.
Yeah.
A little blue one, and it's my troubleshooting hub. And what's funny is we were going to pick up a second one for one of the guys that started. And he goes, I really like the fact that you just got that little hardware solution rather than doing a management port. You just plug in, then you can tap the line and run Wireshark on it. And we went to look. They're actually like super expensive now. They're like $300-$400.
They probably don't make them anymore.
They don't. That's what it amounts to. And so, and that's what I was doing back in the day. And now, obviously, you just set up a management port, run TCP dump, and you're done, or just plug right into the box. And I've done that. I've used TCP dump. If you have you buy a secondhand whatever access point, something shows up in the mail, and it's like, I don't know how to log into the thing. I don't even know what the IP is set for.
Yeah.
It used to be, you have to find the reset procedure and then do some magical voodoo on the machine to get it to reset. Now, plug it in, TCP dump. Oh, that's the IP address. Assign myself to the subnet, and I'm off to the races. It's fantastic. Again, phone lines 855-450-NOAA, 855-450-6624, live at AskNoahShow.com. So interesting. We're talking about phones and open standards and this, that, and the other. Asterisk being one of the main systems that is the real underpinning, is the real workhorse underneath a lot of these phone systems. But I know that you have been working a lot with 3CX. And is that an alternative to Asterisk, or it's just a different competitor to FreePBX sitting on top of Asterisk?
Well, 3CX is one of those systems that for the longest time I've known about it for a very long time. And it's a wonderful, if you want a really polished commercial solution, 3CX was the way to go, but for the longest time, it only ran in Windows. And it was like, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. It was a very painful thing to cross over, but they offer it now in Debian, and it installs in about 2 seconds. And it's very simple to do. It's very easy to work with. In fact, we're setting up a hosting environment for it so that we can just fire them up and host it in our cloud.
Yeah.
And make it quick to get people to business on it. But it's one of those interfaces. They have a SIP client for your phone. They have a SIP client for your tablet. They have one for Windows Desktop. You can use something else because it doesn't run on Linux yet, and I'm hoping they get there. But that 3CX client's great. They have a web meeting that's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it's WebRTC, and it's gorgeous. they have all these solutions in 3CX that they've really put the polish on, and it's free for 8 ports. So, and it's 8 simultaneous calls, and I think, and I'm not sure on the conferencing, and I don't want to state out of line because I think they changed some of that.
Sure.
But you get a certain number of conferencing ports, and then you get 8 simultaneous SIP calls. Now, the best thing about that is that if you think about it, you have an office of 25 people. If you're not a call center, you probably never get over 5 or 6 calls.
Right.
And the great thing about that is that if everyone has an iPhone, they just download the 3CX client, put their phone on Wi-Fi, and now they have their extension when they're at the office. You don't even have to buy a phone.
Right. Yes.
So you've just simplified your entire world, and as long as you have Wi-Fi, and it works over 4G, because you can actually set it up to say, okay, well, I want you to use G729 as a codec, and then if you have that set up in your system, you can actually translate from G709 to ULAW or whatever you want for audio codecs, but it gives you the ability to run 4G outside your office. So as far as the solution goes, we've actually set some people up on 3CX recently, and they're extremely happy with it because it gives them a feature set that in the past you could only get with like a ShoreTel or an Avaya or a Cisco. Now they have this full feature set, and they didn't pay anything to get in the door. All they're paying for is their telecom, and in some cases, for us, we just signed up a client with 8 ports. It's $1 per port, a penny per minute, and a penny per minute on the inbound. So you don't even pay for that fixed $19 a month for the line. It's almost nothing to have that. If you don't have a lot of telecom, your bill's $15-20 a month.
Now this is the hosted solution that you're talking about?
This is at your prem. It doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
The hosted solution, we do have a fee for hosted.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. So this is Voxtel's pricing for to provide a trunk for the
SIP calls.
Gotcha.
We just charge by the port and minute. So it's $1 per port. If you have 8 ports, it's $8 a month.
Yeah. Okay.
If you don't use any minutes, and if you have inbound and outbound DIDs, you're talking a penny per minute. You're never going to see a $50 phone bill if you're just a small office that's not doing a ton of traffic. Toll-frees have their own prices, and they're all priced out differently based on those things. But when it comes down to it, if you were paying $19 a month for a Vonage line or Ring Central or whatever, you have to make that, oh my gosh, I could actually install 3CX and install SIP, and I might be able to reduce my 25 lines down to $100 a month, $15 a month, $20 a month, depending on your usage. And I get web conferencing, I get all the same features. I still can integrate with my CRMs because 3CX has a whole CRM integration page. We even develop so we're actually developing inside of 3CX. If you go with a pro model, you can actually build applications into 3CX to do what you need to do.
Wow, and that's something that you guys are doing.
And that's what we're doing. And we do that for Asterisk, and we do that for other solutions as well.
Sure.
But in 3CX, it's one of those POS solutions that, I can pay to have these guys come in and write a special code set for me, integrate, SMS or integrate certain feature sets into your 3CX to do, agent-to-agent communications over a toll-free SMS.
Sure.
Those are the kind of solutions that now you're taking it from a unified communications or from a phone system to unified communications. And they have a messaging, they have a chat window, they have a beautiful HUD. So if you do have a call center, you have 25 people, you see a whole HUD. Who's on the phone, who's taking calls, queues.
Yeah, they have. If you guys haven't seen this, you should really check them out online. They have a great screenshot of that. What you're talking about, that dashboard like thing. Again, 855-450-NOAH, 855-450-6624. Question from the chat room. JB Live 81362 asks, what's the difference between Asterisk Now versus Free PBX?
They all have the same starting point. It's just a different web interface. And in fact, I don't know if there's much difference between where they start. I mean, they're basically a fork of the same project. So they both work great, by the way. They're excellent solutions. I know people that run their entire call centers. We're talking 250 agents off of an Asterisk Now, and Free PBX. They actually went to Asterisk Now because that's Digium's commercial product. So they went to the Digium commercial version of it, but it's still Asterisk Now. It's a beautiful product.
Would it be accurate to say that Asterisk is the underpinning engine that powers it, and Free PBX is like a web UI that is laid over Asterisk?
Exactly.
And Asterisk Now is the appliance version that takes the Free PBX user interface and stacks it over the Asterisk underpinning.
It's fair to say that it's actually the Asterisk Now is actually a fork of Free PBX a long time ago.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And if you actually look at it, when you install Free PBX or Asterisk Now, it tells you which version of Asterisk you're getting with it.
Gotcha.
Because there's like 11, 13, 14, whatever, and each version has new versions of how they manage SIP and new feature sets, and And Asterisk, like for example, we actually have an Asterisk PBX that runs our office, and it's all command line. I don't even have a web interface for it.
Oh, really?
It just, for me, I started with Asterisk when it first came out.
Yes.
I've been running Asterisk for, well, my daughter was born the year I started running, so 12 years. And
Wow.
when you think about it, you know, Asterisk has matured so much. We actually did a faxing solution on an Asterisk when I first started. That's how we got into Asterisk, and being able to send and receive faxes through it. And it did that well with SPAN DSP and this T38 modem connector. And that's how we got our start in. And all these features, like right now with Asterisk Now, Free PBX, 3CX, you don't even need a fax machine anymore. And I know it sounds weird. I get a lot of medical guys that run doctors' offices.
Oh, yeah.
Still need fax machines.
Oh, God, yeah.
Lawyers' offices.
Yes. I was just going to say, so we're dealing with the law office right now, and it's been, man, I tell you what, everyone thinks, and even me, with as many times as I have been through this, and I sit down in an initial consultation, they're like, yeah, we got a fax machine. I'm like, no problem, we'll put an ATA, assign a SIP extension will be great. Turns out, almost never works reliably. I mean, it kind of does, but it kind of does. And the problem is, like, you start to go look for information, and the reality is, like, the people that are really, really smart have zero interest in working on fax, because it is such a dying or dead technology that we're like dragging into 2017. It's ridiculous. All right, guys, 855-450-NOAA, 855-450-6624. We got a couple other interesting things coming up this hour. We're going to talk about other things other than phones, but this is the guy to ask about phone stuff. So want to get this content to you, and if you guys have questions, either in the chat room or again live at AskNoahShow.com or on the phone 855-450-6624. So tell me this: you spoke a little bit about G729 codec. So let's start with this. So if somebody isn't aware, the original codec, the phone, well, I guess we got to back up a little further. The human voice can. The human ear, rather, can receive frequencies from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, or if we abbreviate that, then we would say 20 kilohertz. That's the range that the human ear can hear. And of course, that's not an exact science. That people are different. So it's there's going to be some people that are going to be a little bit on the high side or the low side of that. Some people are going to be drastically less than that. But that's the average. And when you're talking about a traditional phone line, pick up a phone, you call a phone line, you're talking about is it 16 kilohertz?
It's 8 kilohertz.
8 kilohertz. So we're talking about an 8 kilohertz span of frequency that and which does not really reproduce the human ear by any stretch of the imagination, but it's good enough for clear voice communication. I can understand what you're saying. You can understand what I'm saying. And so the representation of that is it G.711? Is that right?
It's actually ULAW. So
okay.
So ULAW and ALAW, and there's different standards, but depending what country you are. But that standard is represented by a ULAW or ALAW. So G711 or G711A or G711U.
Okay.
And so if you're in Europe, it's going to be A. If you're in the U.S. and Canada, it's going to be U.
Gotcha. But they're both 8 kilohertz.
They're both 8 kilohertz, 64K. Of bandwidth.
Oh, okay.
So you have the 64 kilohertz line, and it works out to be about 86 kilohertz of bandwidth utilization when you're actually sitting down and looking at how much bandwidth you're going to utilize. Just 86K. Just put that into your math equation. So
as we moved into the internet and VoIP and all that stuff, the new standard is this G.722. That's the next one that we went to, right? Which is
G722. It never. I mean, it's there. People use it, but it never really took off. It's one of those codecs that. It's like the mythical unicorn. You can run like 16K of bandwidth. It's like this beautiful codec that lossless sampling, and it never worked out the way. It always sounds tinny. It always has this real rough sound to it, and you're like, wow, I can tell that's a bad sound.
Yeah, sure.
You're on a terrible SIP call.
So, and then we went to G729, and that's what you were talking about.
Yes.
This is the codec that's preferred for VoIP systems.
No, actually, in fact, I'd say most people stay with ULAW.
Okay.
G729 was actually up until just recently. It was completely it had a patent on it, so you had to pay for the patent. The patent expired, but you still have to pay for the codec because it's a licensed codec. No one really has an open source codec out there. So G729 was always paid for, so people didn't use it. But it also does desample. It does reduce the quality of the call because you're actually not getting the entire live. You're not getting 8 kilohertz of voice across your call. You get samples, and you can tell that it's a G729 call. And you can't fax across it, and that's why there's things like T38 that come into play. But G729 will run at 32 kilohertz. and so when you really start thinking about this, is that when you're cutting your bandwidth in almost a third of what you would be doing with ULaw, in the end, it's definitely worth it. And there are also different variances of G729. So sometimes people have some codec mismatch issues and quality issues. So a lot of times people will steer away from G729 unless they know for sure, and we have a conversation with them. We have a lot of customers that do it, but most of those customers are people like in Mexico or overseas where bandwidth is a premium. Here in the States, if you get a 100 meg connection, I mean, if you think about it, you can run on a 100 meg connection, you can run 1,000 calls.
Sure.
So I mean, why of ULaw? So and that's respectably. And where if you have the bandwidth, most people want to run ULaw because you get the best quality of a call.
That makes sense. You know, and so the interesting thing that I have seen in the broadcast industry, has stayed very tight with 722 because they call it HD voice, right?
Yeah.
And so that if you hear it like a sports broadcast or something like that, chances are if it's the ISDN stuff, a lot of that is running over G722. The latest thing that I've seen, we were talking about this a little bit before the show. The latest thing in the codec world, in the IP audio world, is Opus.
Yeah.
And Opus and its partner WebRTC, which is, if you're not familiar with it, is basically embedding an audio system, an audio codec system into the Chrome browser.
Yep.
And that has exploded all over the place, both in telecom and in broadcast.
Yeah, and Opus is one of these beautiful codecs where, you know, I think it's running about 120. So it's once again, it's much larger than ULaw as far as the amount of bandwidth that you're consuming. But you can mess with things in it. So you can actually change that sampling rate down, and so you can reduce it down to the same size of ULaw. You can also mess with the size of the packets. So the typical size of a packet in G711 is 20 millisecond samplings. It's breaking that in 20 millisecond packets. But with Opus, you can take that down to 10 milliseconds. And so now that you're not getting any delay, you're getting many more packets sent, and so so if you do miss a packet, you're not missing 20 milliseconds, you're only missing 10 milliseconds. So
yes,
it's a much cleaner way of doing it. My biggest complaint with Opus is that there's no way to get that to the TDM. So if you're calling someone on a cell phone, most likely a cell phone's using a GSM codec or they're using a CDMA, and you're not going to get Opus through that. You're not going to get Opus to your grandma's phone at their house, and you're not going to get Opus to go to somebody's PBX unless their PBX supports it and the carrier supports it and you support it. And once again, that's the mythical unicorn. So it's going to be translated at some point to ULaw or G729.
You know, I will tell you though, I have seen a little bit of progress on that front. I was hanging out with a good friend of mine, and him and his wife just got new T-Mobile phones, and T-Mobile has, I don't know exactly what the codec is that they're using, but it's some sort of like extremely high fidelity audio codec that they're using. And if you call a T-Mobile customer to a T-Mobile customer, and both of your phones support this thing, the call, instead of going over the telephone network, goes over the data network.
Yeah.
And it does use that higher codec.
And that's great.
and so anyway, where I'm going with that is, what you're looking at is you see Google, which is, you might have heard of them. They're kind of a big deal. They have integrated Opus as their chosen codec. Which, by the way, if somebody doesn't know, Opus is the evolution of the Silk codec, which was originally in Skype. So anyone that says like Skype really sounds great, if you thought Skype sounded great, Opus is the refined version of that Silk codec. Google has integrated Opus into the Chrome browser, and now you're seeing all of these. Like I said, I was talking to, there's a broadcast manufacturer that makes a box that we can actually take calls on the air, Opus calls, through WebRTC. Companies are looking at this and are saying, okay, Opus is just kind of a good go-to open standard that we don't have to pay any licensing fees. That sounds really, really good. And oh, by the way, Google, that tiny little company in California, they back it. And so as you see that kind of stuff take off, then you start to see things like 3CX say, okay, well, we're going to integrate. Oh, I'm sure the WebRTC thing that's using Opus too, right?
Yep.
So all of that stuff is kind of centering on Opus. Obviously, Mumble is using Opus. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing Discord, which seems to be the latest rate.
Yes,
they're all using. Everything seems to be going to Opus. So it's going to be really interesting, to kind of watch that. Last question for you about phones. What do you recommend for an Android app if you're not like so? I guess I should back up. With the 3CX, you said they have an iOS app, an Android app, that kind of thing. but at the end of the day, it's just a SIP server. So I can always just create a SIP extension and use any SIP client, right? Including the built-in Android one.
Yep.
Do you have a recommendation for people who are on Linux or people who are on Android or people who are on iOS?
So for Linux, I very rarely recommend a SIP client. If you find one that works with your flavor of Linux, use it. And
sure.
just go out and search. Because honestly, there's a few out there, and some of them work well on Ubuntu, and some of them work well on CentOS and Fedora. And I don't know why, but they're not consistent. And but as far as your as far as like Android and iPhone, Counterpath, it's a paid paid for solution, but you're going to get the best quality out of it. Counterpath makes a solution, and I'm trying to blank on the actual program's name. Turn my phone off so I don't have it. But they have a client that installs and works with any SIP client, and it has some auto provisioning stuff, so carriers can auto provision with you if you want to, and it works absolutely great. And once again, if you buy a 3CX, they have their own client for iPhone and Android.
Right, yeah.
So you don't have to worry about that. But if you buy or if you download and install Open Asterisk Now or FreePBX, then you can use this Counterpath client, and it's a wonderful client. So and in fact, we have it installed. I have my phone turned off so it won't ring. But that's what we use when we're at home. You know, we just go on our Wi-Fi, turn it on, it registers back to our PBX, and you know, we don't have to worry about communicating. And we've actually decided, and here's another conversation that you have with people, is securing your phones.
Yes,
you
right,
know,
yeah, good.
Just
yes.
because you have something on your cell phone and you're on Wi-Fi,
yeah.
Anyone who, we were just saying that, hey, I could, you know, put that hub on this, be
Yes.
in line and listen. You can actually listen to the phone call in real
Sure.
time. So there are tools out there to do that. Well, that means that open source Linux tool is available to everybody. So we're working on features like TLS and SRTP, and those things are all things that are coming in for being able to sell to people. But one of the things that I always recommend is that if you have something like pfSense, and you can use OpenVPN, and you can use the Android or iPhone client with the Bria was the name of the client.
Oh, okay.
Bria is by Counterpath. You use the Bria client, you can actually completely encrypt your call internally, so it's not going over the public internet, and you don't have to worry about anyone listening in. And those are the kind of feature sets that, you know, when you're designing out a network, you have to know that, you know, SIP was not a secure protocol. It was assuming the network you were running on was secure.
Yes.
And now
and really, it's just a signaling thing anyway, you know.
Yeah, but the media is unencrypted as well, so you can actually listen into calls. So that's why SRTP or encrypted tunnels are very important when if you're trying to protect your network. And you know, we help people, you know, do that all the time. How do we encrypt your communications? How do we make it so people can't listen in on calls? So there's a lot of that goes into the questions for, especially for integrators, is how do I protect my network? And 3CX, Asterisk Now, and FreePBX all have solutions that we can work with you to get that done on.
So would you recommend somebody throw something like FreePBX or 3CX or Asterisk Now or whatever onto like a you know, DigitalOcean's a little more difficult because you'd have to install it from scratch, but like Voltaire, for example, you can just upload an ISO and install it. Would you recommend somebody do that?
You know, if you're confident that you can work with IP tables, and you're confident that you can secure your network through, you know, creating the proper tunneling and stuff like that to that image, and absolutely yes.
So as long as you trust the Linux firewall to block everything else out, and then just maybe only this IP can actually access the web interface or something like that.
Right. And a lot of that, I mean, that's the thing is, I mean, there's new firewalls are out. I'm dating myself, but I've been running IP tables, IP chains for a very long time.
Sure.
So I'm not going to switch. But if you are confident with IP tables and you're confident with your skills in Linux, putting it up in the cloud is no problem. I would say that's probably safer than putting it behind a firewall, because a firewall only secures to the firewall once they get in. It's wide open anyway.
Yes.
So, you know, if you know how to secure an IP tables and secure an IP tables, put it out in the public internet and rock and roll. If you're not confident in that, find someone who is and work with you. There's a ton of people. I mean, I find people in the Jupyter community all the time that I've actually hired to do things for me, because, like, listen, I don't have time to do this. I know if I spent a month figuring it out, you do this in a day, and enjoy.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me what you did so I can maybe manage it.
Have you ever played with Zoiper?
I have. Actually, I have hit and miss with that. Zoiper, actually, we have a couple of clients that have hundreds of them installed.
Okay.
But Zoiper has that apt problem. So every time you do an apt update, it might break your Zoiper client.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to rely on that as your voice solutions, and you don't have a hard phone. We have hard phones for our entire office.
Yeah, same. And I have a hard phone at home, and I have one that's in a small little Pelican case that sits in my work truck, so that if I'm if I have to be on a 3-hour call, I just take that little phone, I plug it in, it plugs in, and then I can transfer it from my cell phone to the thing, and I have an actual speakerphone and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I put a YouTube video up a while ago about how to do real telecom, and when I travel, I have a 4G modem with a converter to Ethernet that goes into my little Netgate SU30 or whatever that little box is, so that I can VPN back in, and then I have a hard phone that plugs into over PoE. And guess what? I have my office on the road because I need to be able to sound like I'm actually at the office even when I'm not.
And it always works. You just take it out and you plug it in, it turns on. All right, let's go to the phones again. 855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. You can email us live at AskNoahShow.com or live at Voxtel Sys, chatting with the expert about IP phones. Michael is calling from Alabama. Hey, Michael, welcome to the Ask Noah Show. Michael? Hello? Do we not have Michael? All right, Michael, I'm going to put you back on hold. I'm sorry about this. I was kind of thinking, earlier on today, I was like, I wonder if there's not something up with our phone system, because we just have, there were so few calls in the call queue as compared to what it usually is. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if sometimes if I disconnect and reconnect, sometimes that will help. Especially if there's an audio issue. So I'm going to see here if I can do this. Let's see here. It's interesting that tonight of all nights would be the night that I have trouble with phones, right? Like, that's kind of funny. Let's see here. I'll click on that. Let's see if that works. And let's see. I don't know. That doesn't seem to be working. I don't know what's going on, and I'm not at the studio, so I actually can't troubleshoot. So I'm sorry about that, guys. So anyway, so we'll go back here. That's okay. Good thing there wasn't a lot of calls today, huh? That's a good thing. I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about this System 76 post. System 76, a company who is known for making Linux computer, released a post a couple days ago, and basically it says why System 76 is making Pop! OS. It says Unity's end. We were shocked. The development of a product we've shipped since 2011 would cease. Unity was no more. Ironically, we had a meeting with Canonical Cloud team that day. In short order, the meeting, 91% of our business was affected, and we had work to do. There was some relief. Most System 76 employees were using a different desktop environment anyway. Just keeping my team excited about Unity had become hard for a while. We're technologists, and we felt Ubuntu's drift. I agreed with Canonical's strategy of maintaining Unity 7 while they developed Unity 8 separately, but time dragged on, and we were stuck between waiting for a new product which sounded like it was constantly around the corner and investing in Unity 7 that was on its way out. There was no good decisions. Just hold the line. That's not comfortable for an ambitious company. Now with Unity canceled, the world is wide open again. I spun up distros. And then he goes on to say the business. In hindsight, we should have known. Like everyone, I wanted the Ubuntu desktop to stand up economically on its own. It's only a matter of time before the company must align with what its investments with its paying customers are, and that wasn't the desktop for Canonical. But it is for System 76. The desktop is what we work on every day. We survey and listen to our customers. We know them well. Our engineering, marketing, sales, and support teams are already aligned to offer a Linux desktop. I started thinking that Canonical can focus on the enterprise where they excel, and we'll focus on the desktop where we excel. And our direction was taking shape. All right, I want to stop there for a second, and I want to break this down a little bit. So first of all, I question some of this from the standpoint of I have spoken with Canonical employees directly. In fact, I've spoken with one particular Canonical employee that has a meeting with Mark Shuttleworth regularly on the direction of Canonical, the direction of Desktop Linux, and I can tell you unequivocally that this concept that Ubuntu is no longer worried or no longer is focusing on the desktop is false. That's a false premise, and so we are proceeding from a false premise to begin with. As far as why that they were shocked, they were shocked. I'm sure they were. In fact, I was sitting in a room with Dell. We were talking about this. Mike and I were talking about this before the program. Dell was shocked. Canonical, I think they screwed up. I think that they really missed an opportunity to reach out to their hardware partners, Dell, System76, Lenovo to a far lesser extent, but anyone that is making money shipping products with Linux on them, I think they missed an opportunity to reach out to them and say, hey, we're going to be making an announcement, and in the next month, in the next 2 months, this is what's going to happen, and so you should be prepared to understand that we still care about the Linux desktop. We are actually going to focus harder now more than ever because we're dropping all the phone stuff and the TV stuff and all that stuff. We're just going to focus on the desktop, but this is the direction that we're going because we think that this best suits users, and we have a plan in place to make sure that desktop Linux are served. I think that would have gone a long, long way. So then the article goes on to say, we're getting closer to POP. We have a fundamental belief that the computer and the operating system are the most powerful and versatile tools ever created. The desktop operating system has moved too far forward from the casual user. Every deliberation is planted on those guiding ideas. I just observed while Canonical announced the end of Unity, Ubuntu GNOME received the most attention from the team. We figured that it's essentially the future of Ubuntu, and we better get to know our new product. GNOME stood out. There was an abundance of technology and thoughtful workflow with the extension framework that we saw the potential to shape a desktop to our customers' needs, and we liked GNOME. So here again, I guess I'm just asking questions. Why, if they agree with the concept of moving to GNOME, are they concerned with the direction that Canonical is taking Ubuntu? And if they don't like the direction that Canonical is taking Ubuntu, and because they don't actually think that GNOME is a great desktop, then why not try to salvage or continue to develop Unity? Because Unity 8, you started out the post talking about how it's always directly around the corner. They're waiting for it to actually finish, and they have a development team, and they're very talented developers. They're very, very... System76 employees, the System76, the company, are some of the most passionate, knowledgeable people I've ever met. And it is awe-inspiring to be in their presence, to be inside of their company, and to watch, the camaraderie and the teamwork that goes on. I mean, they're fantastic people. But I honestly question why, if they have this, if this is a problem, like why are they going this direction? So anyway, then they talk about how. That they are releasing the beta, and they want you to download it and take a look at and see what you think. And I guess here is my question. What does Pop! OS do that Ubuntu proper isn't doing? What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to come at this from an owner of a System76 serval.
Yeah.
I had it for years, and it's the best laptop I've ever owned, and I'm pretty partial to it. It's actually a desktop. Sure. It's actually just a laptop in a desktop form. But I installed Pop! OS because I was running KDE Neon, and there was an update that was pushed out that just nuked my NVIDIA settings and blocked me from reinstalling it because I couldn't reinstall Neon because, well, anyways, it was a frustrating thing. They're both running in Ubuntu. Pop! OS installed and worked immediately. It's just GNOME. But, so... As a business owner, I hate what Canonical did because we had 6 developers that had to change their environments because it's going away. Unity's going away.
Yeah.
I was running Unity and a proponent of Unity up until they made the announcement, and that's when I started looking, okay, I'm going to go back to KDE Neon, or I'm going to go back to KDE, or I'm going to go try these things. I've been running Unity since it first came out, since GNOME made the mistake when they made their mistake originally, and then Ubuntu said we're doing Unity. That was a wonderful time that really sucked for everybody.
Yeah,
And I feel like we're kind of headed back into that. And Ubuntu's announcement of not doing Unity in the way they did kind of just, instead of making it a, hey, this is what we're doing and why. We've already worked with the vendors. We're supporting everything. You guys don't need to worry about it. Now the vendors are all out there looking for replacements. And so people are like, I'm going to switch to Debian and run XFE. Great. If that's what you want to do, great. But having System76 support something, so when a developer's having a problem with Linux, because that wasn't their native OS that they learned in. They came from either a Mac or Windows, but we switched them to Ubuntu so that they could do development the way we want them to. When they have a problem, they call System76 and say, hey, I'm having a problem with this laptop that's running your OS. Can you help me fix it? Guess what? Now it's Pop! OS, so it's System76 problem. And I look at Ubuntu this way. If Ubuntu was worried about the desktop being so perfect, they've supported so many desktop. I mean,
Yes.
Mate. I mean, I
Yeah,
ran Mate for a while because I thought it was decent. I'm on Pop! OS because that's what my laptop vendor's doing. But I'm
Yes,
still running
right.
Neon on one of my laptops, and my desktop's still running Neon. I have Mate running on another desktop.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with many OSs. But as a business owner,
Sure.
I want to know that what I have installed has a forum that I can go get support on.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Unity did. Unity, if you had a problem with Unity, you just go to Ubuntu and search in your problem, and guess what? They're going to have a bunch of smart people working on the problem. Now, that's still there, but it's for Unity. So what happens?
And you get you have the phone number to call in and just call System 76 and say I have a problem.
Yeah.
And I agree with all that 100%. But couldn't they have done that with Ubuntu proper now? Couldn't they have just layered that support like they have done in the past on? Because the reality is, like, Pop! OS and Ubuntu proper haven't. I mean, they're using. I mean, I guess Canonical has made some extension changes and stuff. So I suppose to that extent there probably be some differences. But I still feel like System 76 could have been the company that just supported Ubuntu, continued to support Ubuntu.
Yeah, but I'm actually kind of glad for Pop! OS because I'm hoping that System 76 kind of gets rid of some of the foolishness that happens in the GNOME community. I mean, because GNOME will just nuke and pay stuff all the time just because their group of developers are like, we want the freedom of whatever, and so they come up with this philosophical decision to pull something out or change something or make a fundamental change to how GNOME works, and it breaks a bunch of other stuff that maybe tools that my developers were using.
Yeah.
And now, if I have Pop! OS, I'm pretty sure these guys are going to take the effort to say, hey, listen, this is GNOME to the best that we can keep it, but we're going to keep it good for you as developers, because that's not every developer that works on Linux actually really cares how Linux works.
Yeah.
What they care about is that they have a desktop environment that they can write their Python or Rails or work on whatever they're working without the OS getting in their way. And that's where Unity's change. Everyone was running Unity, and every one of my developers was running Unity. And then Unity says, we're going away. We're moving to GNOME. So we just, as people were reinstalling OS, they moved to GNOME. And then when the main developer switched, everyone switched.
Yeah.
Because when you're trying to tell someone how to go do something,
Right.
Unity and GNOME don't
of course
work
not.
the same at all.
No, not even close. And we see that, because we have hundreds and if not thousands of Unity machines in production, and so I'm dealing with this on a whole separate way. But here is a thought experiment. So you have System 76, and they are undisputedly masters at providing support and integration at a human level to their customers, right? Like, I don't think anyone would ever argue that if you buy a computer from System 76, you're going to be treated as a human being, and they're going to deliver a top-notch product that's based in Linux, on Linux, from people who really, 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 really care about Linux more than anything else.
Yep.
I don't think anyone would argue that. And then you have a lot of those people, everyone, actually, that is a System 76 customer that's buying the computer because they want the support from System 76. They're using Ubuntu 16.04 probably at the moment with Unity on it. And what we learned this week was that Canonical is shifting, and they are going to continue the development of Unity, as we all kind of expected that would happen, but they're going to continue it in such a way that it will be an option for 18.04. The next LTS that will be based on GNOME, they're going to still have support if you want to install the Unity desktop. So here, I will make a Redbook prediction right here, that within 1 year, Ubuntu Unity will become a blessed flavor. So it will just take the place of Ubuntu GNOME. Ubuntu GNOME will be the desktop that installs by default, and then under that you'll have Ubuntu Mate, you'll have Ubuntu Unity, you'll have Ubuntu KDE. All those will be right under that.
Will they call it Ubuntu?
So, the naming could be so cool. Ubuntu, which would actually it would tick off a lot of the people that for years have been trying to say that's how the proper pronunciation of Ubuntu. I don't know if you've noticed, like, I do this during the program. I'll switch my pronunciation of Ubuntu just to make sure I equally irritate everyone. But no, so I think that's going to become a blessed flavor. And so then that begs the question, now you have a void in the Linux community. Ubuntu Unity is going to continue. That much we know. I will tell you, my personal prediction is that it's going to continue as its own blessed flavor. So you have basically a distribution now that has no real spearhead. Like, Canonical is going to throw whatever resources they have at it, right? But ultimately, wouldn't it be really cool if you had a PC manufacturer that has been supporting Ubuntu with Unity since 2011 step up and say, okay, Pop! OS is going to be Ubuntu Unity. And maybe they theme it to match the System76 color theme, but it still has Unity. And then what would happen, the culmination of that would be all of those people that really like Unity, and I'll put myself in that boat. In fact, as I do this episode right now, a really good friend of mine is nuking and paving a bunch of his production systems and going back to Unity from the distro that he was on. And I don't want to throw him under the bus or anything because I have a feeling he wants to talk about that himself. But there are people that are doing that really want to go back to Unity. And if I knew that, and I think you kind of passively agreed with this already, if Ubuntu or if System76 made the promise that they were going to continue developing Unity, you might have never switched.
Yeah.
Because you did switch to Pop! OS. So, I mean, and I would have kept a lot of my computers on Unity had there been an option to continue, and I would have put a lot of my customers' computer on Unity if they were comfortable. If they were comfortable in Unity, and I knew that the change was going to be problematic, I would have just kept them there, and they would have been on the System76 distro. If the customers didn't really care, or I knew that they would be better served being on GNOME proper. And one of the things that's going to hit me real hard is we have contract requirements from, government agencies and universities and stuff like that. I don't get any say in that. They just tell me, you're going to run this particular distribution, and 99% of the time, if it's not a server running Red Hat, it's Ubuntu on the desktop. UND does have, I think, one desktop lab that they run Red Hat on for like a Java class or something like that. But for the most part, it's Ubuntu with Unity on the desktop. And when Ubuntu changes direction and says now the default desktop is GNOME, guess what? All of those guys are going GNOME regardless of what I think about it. And so I would have, that's what I would have done, is I would have started making those changes over in the places I could to GNOME, and I would have kept the people on Unity. So I think that there is, and I don't even necessarily know that the ship has sailed yet. I think that, Mark just made this announcement a couple of days ago. I think there is still time for somebody, if System76 I think is the most suited, but if not System76, really anyone, to come in and make their mark and say, we're going to be the guys that saved Unity. So if you liked Unity, and there are people that like Unity, and I would argue that a lot of people that are Linux guys, even people that buy System70, I bought a lot of System76 computers. I don't know if I've ever once left the stock image on the computer. I just like to set things up my own way. And that doesn't necessarily always mean that I went away from Unity. I do have one that I imaged myself. They have a really cool imaging server that you plug your laptop in and you can image. I think it's my Galago. That I took to System76 and I imaged on their server. That one still runs a stock image just because I did it myself and I think it's cool. But the rest of them, most of the time, I'm buying System76 hardware for the support and the fact that they're a true Linux community member, and I'm blowing it away and putting my own operating system on it. I wonder if that isn't a place that Canonical really could have filled in.
No, they could have. I mean,
or still could, really.
But see, this is also why the Linux community is like certifiable. I mean, honestly, I mean, think about it. We're sitting here having this conversation about, switching from Unity. Like, I just had my entire development team switch off Unity because there was no clear-cut plan when they made their announcement. They made their announcement, like, was it April or May?
Yeah.
Right?
April.
So they switched on. So for 17.4, they said, okay, we're going to upgrade to 17.4 because we need to do these tools. We had guys that were running on 14.4 LTS, and so they needed to upgrade to 16.04 or go to 17. And so that was we had to upgrade, and Unity wasn't supported. I mean, there was talk about it, but no one made any. I mean, they couldn't have done this in the background without airing it out in the world. They could have done this back then, but they completely disrupt the market for 6 months, and now they're saying, "Hey, guess what? We're going to support Unity again."
Yeah. And yes, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Here's my frustration as a user. I can go and install Unity, and I know how to talk someone through installing an open VPN client. Now I've learned how to do that in GNOME. I know how to do it in KDE because those are the environments that we now have to support. I can still do it in Unity, but if I have to relearn these simple steps of how to do something, because they're all a little bit different.
Right.
They all have their caveats.
Yep.
When you sit down and have a conversation, I mean, it's not like BSD where, and I'm going to use this as an example.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
Yes.
I mean, BSD, you install it, you get TrueOS or whatever they're calling it now, and that is your solution, and this is how you do it. It's a pretty simple thing to manage, and everyone knows the world. In Linux, I mean, you could be running GNOME on one of 4 flavors, or 5 flavors actually, I think now, and Conoco stepped in the mix and says, we're going to do it better. We're going to give you a long-term support. We're going to make this so that you as a business can bet your dollars on us. And then they go pull this like rookie shit that just makes me as a user feel kind of like, how am I supposed to support my business on that?
Yeah, that's a great note to leave it on. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate having you on the program. All right, guys, follow us on Twitter at Ask Noah Show. Make sure to check us online, asknoahshow.com. We'll see you next week.